I'll get straight to the point. Gwen Stacy is not real. Yesterday, at the time of writing this, Marvel announced a 5-part miniseries called Spider-Versity, in which Norman Osborn, and also Jessica Drew, although you won't see that in the headlines because you won't get mad at her inclusion, is teaching a bunch of spider-folk how to be ready for a big threat. Why Norman? Well, he has plenty of experience being that big threat, so who better to teach them? Which spider-folk? Well, Miles Morales, Silk, Aranya, Spider-Boy, Spider-Girl, and notably for this video, Spider-Gwen. It's an interesting and engaging pitch, very much an extension of what Norman Osborn is doing in Amazing Spider-Man right now, and the series is out in April. Unfortunately, I came across this news on Reddit, and the top comment under it was this. The idea of having Norman Osborn mentoring a teenage version of Gwen Stacy should have had this pitch rejected immediately. And this is a problem. This comment speaks to an issue that I've seen in Spider-Man fandom and in fandom in general for a while now, and it's an attitude that I want to take a moment to address. But first, some quick context. The reason why someone might have an issue with Norman Osborn mentoring a teenage Gwen Stacy is that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin, and famously killed Gwen Stacy. Not this one, Spider-Gwen is from another universe, but he killed the main version of Gwen. He also slept with her at some point, but this was mostly memory hold by writers and then retconned to not be real recently, and so I'll be ignoring it for the sake of this video. Owen Lights Comics has a fantastic video on that subject if you want to go down that rabbit hole. As the Green Goblin, Norman was undoubtedly one of Spider-Man's greatest villains. As well as killing Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's first love, he also killed Peter's clone, and probably his child too. Despite being dead for decades, Norman Osborn has caused a great amount of misery to the Parkers, and to Spider people in general, while he's been around. So why is he even in a position now where he could be mentoring young spider heroes? Well, he was shot with a magical shotgun that removed all his sins from him because comics, and for the last few years he has been redeemed, barring a few returns to type. Norman without his sins has been a haunted figure, literally haunted by the memory of Gwen Stacy, and he's been trying to make up for his past actions. He's given Peter a job, with money and freedom to still be Spider-Man. He's become the Gold Goblin to try and help people, and recently, when Peter Parker mysteriously disappeared, he has taken on the role of Spider-Man himself, building devices that allow him to mimic the original. And this recent move has not come easy. The series has explored what it means for Norman to step into Spider-Man's shoes, to see how hard Peter works to be the Spider-Man that we know and love. Norman acknowledges that he's not as good a person as Peter, and even clocks the ego inside him that means that he spent his time dressing up instead of searching for Peter. Norman Osborn is trying to be a better man, and he's having a hard time. This is the context for this new series, which is directly spinning off from these events in The Amazing Spider-Man, and the context that brings us back to this first comment. The idea of having Norman Osborn mentoring a teenage version of Gwen Stacy should have had this pitch rejected immediately. And with all kindness to the original poster, no. The idea of having Norman Osborn mentoring a teenage Gwen Stacy is exactly why you would tell this story. Because that's the drama, that's the conflict. And conflict is story. Boiled down to the essence, a good story takes a character who wants something and then puts things in the way of them getting that thing. Conflict. Norman Osborn wants redemption. The path to redemption involves teaching heroes how to survive against a coming threat, and that means teaching the mirror of the person that he once killed, the person who still haunts him. That's a compelling story. Gwen Stacy wants nothing more than to beat Norman up, but Peter trusts this guy and there's a threat coming, so the thing getting in the way of what she wants is having to work with the guy that once killed a version of her. That's a compelling story. The writer of the series agrees. Jordan Morris, in an interview with IGN, says, "The Norman-Gwen relationship is fascinating and something that the team has been talking about a lot. Yes, there's gallons of bad blood. Not only does Gwen have the rockiest history with Norman, but her armour is a little thicker than some of the other spiders to begin with. It would be very understandable for her to just kick his butt and be done with it. But in the recent pages of Amazing Spider-Man, Norman has done some truly heroic things. Gwen will be keeping an eye on Norman for sure, but I think deep down, she wants him to have changed. And look, you don't have to like the idea of the story. And maybe it won't turn out to be a good story, but it has every reason to exist, and is absolutely an extension of the journey that Norman is going on. But I think there's another reason that the commenter thinks Norman shouldn't mentor Gwen. Something that is going unsaid here is that Norman Osborn shouldn't be mentoring Gwen Stacy because it would be unkind to Gwen Stacy. That it's disrespectful to her in some way to have her work with her abuser, to have her learn from someone who killed a version of her. And if Gwen Stacy was real, and someone was forcing her to spend time with her abuser, this would be an issue, a reason not to have Norman in a position of power over her. But, and this is so important that I said it right up top, Gwen Stacy isn't real. And for that matter, neither is Norman Osborn and neither is Peter Parker. I see this feeling all the time in fandom spaces. In Spider-Man spaces, it's the idea that the writers hate Peter Parker because they keep writing bad stuff happening to him. In Star Wars, the writers wanted to humiliate Luke Skywalker by having him walk away from the Force and go into exile like a wimp. And that character that died in that show you loved? Well, that was because the writer didn't like them and really they didn't deserve to die. And then this becomes a commentary on and a hatred for the creators of the work. Not only is the character real, but they're now a reflection of anybody who might be similar to that character, and their fate is a reflection of how the creators feel about those kind of people. The Stranger Things writers think there's no path forward for people who have gone through trauma because of the fate of Eleven. The misogyny in Game of Thrones is actually the misogyny of the writers, and the writers of Breaking Bad think that Walter White is a hero, so what does that say about them? And bringing us back to Spider-Man, that Zeb Wells split Peter and MJ up becomes evidence of how he feels about marriage and women and how he's secretly sexist, as are all the editors that approved his story. And I understand where this mindset comes from. We're getting better, broadly, at empathy as a race, with our language and how we approach others. And humans have the ability to empathize with anything. Of course, we're going to empathize with our favourite fictional characters. But that doesn't make them real. And to treat them as if they are, to push to remove conflict from their lives, is to not understand story. And we need stories to help understand the world, to grow as people, ironically, to become more empathetic. Stories in all their forms, comics and films and novels and shows, help us see the world through the lens of someone else. They help us experience big emotions through the safety of the page or screen. The horror in a movie is fictional, but the fear is real, given in small, safe doses. The characters are fictional, but when they die or find love, our tears and our joy are real. We can come to understand real people through the eyes of fictional ones, expand our horizons by traversing story. To experience conflict, even fictional conflict, is to learn how to be better, to grow as people. To deny those stories for fear of hurting people who were never real is to deny ourselves the opportunity for that growth. To say that Norman Osborn shouldn't mentor Gwen Stacy, to say that the very idea should have been scrapped the moment that it was uttered, is to lose what could be an interesting story about redemption. It's to not explore how someone so filled with sin, someone who has committed terrible, terrible crimes all through their life, can ever find redemption, or whether they can at all. It's to not explore what it means to forgive those who have wronged us, in this life and in past ones. These are stories that need to be told, even in silly little comic books. We should experience what it means to be redeemed or to forgive, because that makes us stronger people, kinder people, more empathetic people. And unlike the fictional characters that people are so keen to defend, there are real people who could use that strength, that kindness and that empathy. We put fictional characters through conflict, so we come out stronger on the other end. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the lovely patrons listed here for supporting me and this channel. There are other video essays on the right about Spider-Man's origin or Mary Jane or Ultimate Spider-Man, and you should definitely check them out and subscribe if you want more. Have a lovely day.